Here's how I would add some list of terms with some unique term colors. Take 2. In a previous video, I showed how to add the term colors, but then I got a bit geeky and I started talking about Timber and Twig, and I lost a few people. So in today's video, we're going to be doing everything directly in the Elementor page builder. So all the templates will be created using Elementor. So now let's go ahead and start from scratch. So first, I'll go ahead and show you the backend with the custom post type I created and the terms and all the meta fields that I added to those terms. Then we'll go ahead and create our query and we'll create the listing. So now let's jump back in. So here we are on the WordPress dashboard. Let me go ahead and show you the example. So we'll come under resources. That was a custom post type I created using JetEngine. So I'll come under all resources. And then we just have 4 example posts. So let's say I'll go into shortcodes. And we now have the resource type. This is a custom taxonomy created using JetEngine as well. And we just have 2. So for this one, we have 2 taxonomy terms that have been ticked. So what we want is that on the front end, we want to have our card. And then within that card, we want to be able to show those 2 terms. So that is design and dynamic content as 2 separate items with any kind of styling of our choice. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So for this example, I'll just use Elementor's Loop Grid first to create the main card. Then I'll use JetEngine's listing grid to create the listing of terms. In the previous video, I used Timber and Twig. In this one, I'm just going to use Elementor to create that template. So now let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So I'll come to a page and let's just create a new page. And this will be called the resource demo loop. Publish that, publish it. Then I'll go and edit it with Elementor. So here we are in the Elementor edit page. First, let me go ahead and drop in a loop grid widget into a container. So I'll drop it into this area. So it's now a loop grid in a container. Then the next thing I'll do is change the query to the right query source. I'll change it to the resources. Okay. And I think that's that. The next thing we want to do now is one of 2 things. If you've already created your template, then just go ahead and search for your template. But in this case, we're starting from scratch. So I'll create a template. Click Save. So now within this template area, the first thing I like to do before I even start creating my template is to give it a name. So that when I go back in time, I'll be able to remember what template I created for what purpose. So come to the cog icon, which should be at the top center of your page if you have the top bar experiment active. Otherwise, it will be at the bottom left of your page. So I'll click on that cog icon. Then I'll give it a title. This title, I'll call it something like the resource demo loop template. Okay. Then under preview, we'll go ahead and I think we can leave the width the way it is. This is good enough. Then we'll specify the post to be resource. And I'll just choose one post. So maybe the dynamic shortcodes. You don't actually have to specify a post. Once you click apply and preview, it will preview the latest post. But I just want to preview a specific one because I believe this one has 2 terms. So it will be easy for us to see. So now apply preview. Okay. Now let's go ahead and drop in all of the widgets that we need. But first, let me even go ahead and see what I have within that post. So I'll go to the post types and I'll go to resources and I'll go to the dynamic shortcodes. So let's go ahead and edit it. So Control Enter to open a new tab, Escape, and Control Tab. So now, from what I can see here, I have the post title, I have the post content, then I have some fields here like display name, which is the image. So I'll go ahead and copy that. That'll be my featured image because I didn't set up a featured image. So let's copy that. Then I'll come back to my post and we'll start with the post title. So I'll say post title, or you can use the heading widget. So use post title. This already just sets the right tag to post title. Next, I'll change the HTML tag to probably a H3, because in this case, we're going to have our page title as the H1. Then each section will have a title, like maybe your testimonials or any of those kind of sections to have a title. So the loop grid is usually the next thing after that, the section title. And because I have an excerpt in this page, so I believe this should be a heading. So that's why I'm setting it up to be H3. Then I'll go ahead and drop in the featured image widget. Oh no, not in this case, because I don't actually have a featured image. I just have a field, which is a custom meta field. So let me go ahead and just drop in an image widget. And I will choose the dynamic tag. Since it was created using JetEngine, I'll look for the custom image. Then I'll choose the field. The field name was called display name. And yeah, so that should be it. So let me give it a fallback to be this image. Okay. So we have this. Then the next thing we want to do is we have some post content. So I'll put the excerpt. So excerpt. And I'll choose to apply from the post content. And I'll just say maybe 25. Don't worry about all of this. I think something is wrong. When I refresh the page, it should come back properly. Then what else do we have? Okay, then we have this background color. So let's say I want to apply it to the image itself. So I'll come to the advanced tab. Then I'll come under background type, should be classic. Choose the background and choose the dynamic tag. And I'll say custom field, because it's a JetEngine custom field. Then the field, I'll choose the name, which was called, in this case, listing background color. So look for listing background color. Okay. So let's publish that. Then the last thing we want to do is now add in our tags here. But before we do that, let me just do some quick styling. So I'll put the image. I want it to be at the top. So I'll come to the advanced tab, then layout, and choose the order to be start. So visually it's at the top, but the heading starts the whole thing. That's what I like to do personally, because I found out from the US, like their templates, this is how they do it. So that's why I started using this template, whereby the heading first, followed by the image, then the post content and whatever goes below that. Okay. So we can now change okay, now everything is being pulled in correctly. I just need to refresh the page, I believe. Let's refresh. Okay, so you see everything is being pulled in correctly. So I can continue editing. Let's start from the image. I want to make the image to be a 16:9 image. So what we'll do now is I'll just apply a little bit of custom CSS. So on the image itself, I'll come to the advanced tab, come down to the bottom to custom CSS. Then all I'll do is write selector. Then I would say that I want the image. So selector, image, open the curly brace and close it. Then I'll come into those two curly brace area, press the enter key. And I'm not going to apply two things here. I'm just going to say that the aspect ratio should be 16/9. Then I'm going to say I want the object fit to be contained. That's what I want in this case. Finally, I'll come back to the style tab and then just set it to 100%. Okay, that's it. So we get this nice styling. We can add some padding to make it not flush to the edge of the screen. So I'll come to the advanced tab. I'll come to the padding and I'll set some padding. So let's say I'm going to be using some CSS variables. In a future video, I'll show you how I use CSS variables in general within Elementor. So I'll just call it maybe something like space L, just to get some space around it. And now we get some nice spacing. Okay, I can now publish this. So we are getting there, but the design is not the main focus of the video today. The main focus is getting the terms. So now that we have gotten the basic loop, the next thing is to apply the term into this basic loop. And like I showed in my previous video, you can go ahead and check that out. Using Elementor's post info widget, you get the list of items, but they're all like connected together. You can't style them. So that's a limitation. Let me go ahead and show you. So I'll search for the post info widget, drop that in, and I'll delete all the rest. Choose only one, and then change the type to be the terms. Then I'll choose the taxonomy and say that should be the resource types. And I don't want it to be linked. As you can see, we get all of these, but they are now like combined together with the comma, so you can't actually style them separately. So that's the limitation here. You can remove the icon if you don't want, but like I said, they're all together. What we want in this case is that we want to be able to add some background color to each of these individual items. So that's not possible using Elementor. But thankfully, with JetEngine, we can now overcome all of these limitations. So I'll delete this. I'll publish it. We have our basic template. Now I'll go to the JetEngine and I want to create a listing grid. So let's just first go to JetEngine and JetEngine. So under JetEngine here, first, make sure under performance, I always like to set up this optimized DOM. So click that, that will reduce some wrapper divs. Then make sure you have Elementor views set to active. That's the only way you'll be able to use Elementor to create your templates. And that's it here. You can disable the other ones. You don't need them. As long as you have the view that you want to be able to edit in. If you have that, the next thing I want to do now is create a query. Because what I'm trying to achieve is we want to retrieve the terms for each of the current posts. So we don't want to just retrieve the list of terms in general. We want to like restrict it to each post. So a list of terms restricted to each post. For that, we use the JetEngine query builder to create the query. So let's go ahead and see how easy it is. So I'll go under query builder and I'll create a new query. I'll give it a name, something like resource type for current post, something like that. Okay. Then we change the query type to be terms. You can cache the query. The taxonomy should be the resource types. Then we can come to this object/post IDs, and what we want to now restrict it to is the current ID. So that's all we need. We can now also do things like how you want to order it by name, by slug, by term ID. In this case, let me just say term ID. And the order should be from the latest to the oldest. Okay. We can play around with these settings the way you want. Then I'll just say add query. So the name is this resource type for current posts. So I'll add query. Now that we've added the query, the next thing we want to do is create a listing grid. So we'll come under listings/components. Then I'll create a new item. I'll set it to be from the query builder. Then the query, we choose the source to be this resource type for current post. And we just give it a name. So I'll say resource type listing. Okay. This time we're going to use the listing view as Elementor. I'll create the listing item. So thankfully, it's already been named from when we named it. So we don't have to name it again. This is from the settings. This is what we named it. So the only thing I'm going to do here is, first, let me go ahead and even see what we have to work with. So I'll come to my resource types. So that is resources, resource type. Control Enter to open a new tab. Then Control Tab to get to that tab. Let me go ahead and check out maybe code snippets. So what we have is a name, a slug, and we have the background color. Okay. So let me go back to my listing and we just drop in maybe a heading widget or any widget of our choice. So let's say heading widget. Then I'll set it to maybe a span. And all we have to do now is click on the dynamic tag. This time we'll be choosing things that have to do with the term. So we'll look for the term field because we're targeting terms here. So anything that has to do with the term field. The taxonomy, we choose the right taxonomy, which is the resource type. And the field is the term name. Okay. Then we want to give it a background color. So I'll come to the advanced tab. Then under background, I choose the classic background, choose the picker, and then choose the dynamic tags. It's going to be a term field as well. So term, and we choose the taxonomy to be the resource types. The field itself should be the meta field, and I'll choose that field key. So let me go ahead and copy it. Copy the field key, and then I'll paste it here. Then let me go ahead and give it some padding. So let's say I'll remove all of these and then say maybe the left should be 20 pixels, right should be 20 pixels. You style it according to your own taste. So maybe 10 pixels up and 10 pixels down. And then let's publish it. Let me go ahead and refresh the page and see if it populates. Okay, it doesn't, but it should work in the page we're working on. So I'll come back to my page. This is my original loop template. Now I'll go ahead and drop in a listing grid item. So listing grid, drop that into the page. Then I'm going to select my listing. The name was called resource type. So resource type listing. Click that. And you see, we get our listing. So in this case, let's say I want it to be single one. And we get, this is the listing. So all you have to do is just style it however you want. So let me say I'll come to the style tab and say I don't want any horizontal gap. And I don't want any vertical gap. And what else? So you just style it how you want it to be done. So yeah, now we can go ahead and preview it on the front end. So preview. And we get something like this, where we get this listing. If we want it to be like just to the size, then we'll have to do some adjustments. One thing I forgot to do is come back to the resource type. I forgot to change this container from boxed to full width. So remember to always change your loop item from a boxed to a full width. But yeah, that's how you can do it using JetEngine. I will drop the CSS you can write in the description somewhere that will make it so that everything just fits the content rather than having to fill up the entire space like this. If you want it to fit the content, I'll drop the CSS in the description. And yeah, that's it. If you've enjoyed the video, please do leave a thumbs up so that I know you liked the video. If you want me to explain anything further, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to try to explain. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.